Catriona Le May Doan with me right now on the Calgary Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for taking time. First off, how the heck are you? How you doing?
I'm probably doing just like everyone else is doing, pretty well. Kind of excited for Christmas. It's kind of different. It's a different year, right? It's a different year for everybody. And I'm about to celebrate my 50th. So yeah, I'm a December 23rd baby, and it doesn't bother me. So you know what? I'm good. I'm recovering from a knee injury. I've never injured myself in my entire life. I did a really silly thing, but I figure I'm recovered by the time I'm 50, so I'm good. Long answer, but I'm good.
Wow. Well, happy belated or happy early birthday, depending on when this actually gets published. But that's awesome. That's a big year for you. I mean, it's probably not the year that you maybe wanted to celebrate the 50th, but happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Yeah, the original plan was my kids and I were going to go to somewhere warm, but you know what? It can be done another time. That's okay. I'll be around for a while.
Well, something to celebrate earlier this year. I mean, you were bestowed the honor for Chef de Mission. Tell me a little bit about that, and how did that feel when you got bestowed that honor?
You know, it is something that I've thought about doing ever since I've retired. So for a long time, I retired in 2003. And I had an opportunity to work with the team, but then at some point, I actually thought, you know, I want to try the media side. So I did that for a number of years, loved it. And then in 2018, I was approached by the Canadian Olympic Committee. Do you want to come and be what used to be assistant chef de mission? And so I walked away from the media and took this volunteer position, was in the village with the athletes, and I loved it. And I realized in 2018 that I wanted to one day be chef. And being chef is, I mean, it's not a glamorous position because you are taking the brunt of stuff often. I often refer to it as putting on the armor because you are leading the team. And then when the games start and when the focus should be on the athletes, my role is to step aside. So I'm excited because, you know, I want to help the athletes have their best possible Olympic experience. So whether that's on the playing field, in the village, the part of the whole experience, it's something that I really wanted. And when I actually got the call to let me know that I was going to be named chef, I burst into tears, and it was my indication on just how badly I wanted that.
I mean, talk about, your experience when you were competing and, having that kind of guidance and mentorship, I guess, when you're going through as like an athlete, it's a new experience, you're in a different country. So tell me about how important that is.
You know, it's changed a little bit since the time I was an athlete because it didn't always have to be an Olympian. Now the chef de mission is an Olympian. So it has changed a bit, but especially in 2002, which was my fourth games and sort of the real games that was full of pressure and everything. The chef that I had there, Sally Horick, she was great. She was great leading up. She was great during the games. We had some team dynamic issues, and so she was a part of that. And, you know, I really appreciate sort of that leadership role. And as chef, what I want to be able to show the athletes is I've had great experiences at games and I've had horrible experiences in the way of performance. And so I want them to understand, I get it. I get it from the media side. I get the pressures. I get the performance pressures. I get it all. And so I want to be that resource if they need me. But again, my role is not to get in their way. It's just to help them if they want it.
And I think that's really important when they can lean on someone with that experience, right? And like, as someone who works in the media too, like the pressures of that alone, like, and then trying to compete on top of it. I mean, the pressure has got to be mounting for these athletes.
Yeah, and it's a different situation because of COVID. So right now, the athletes would be literally counting the days, going, okay, we're leading into 2021. So we're now, 14 months out. Where this year is different because most of them don't have competitions. Most of them, if I look at the speed skaters, they're not actually not on ice. They're on ice at different places. And so they've learned to adapt. And so, as chef, my instant thing would have been, okay, where are they training? Where are they competing? I want to get to know every athlete. So it is a lot of adapting. And for them, they've dealt with it really well, and they've watched the summer athletes deal with a year postponement. But I think what it's going to do is next year is going to put an extra amount of pressure because they won't have competed in a year. And that is tough because nothing can mimic a competition. Nothing can mimic the Olympics. So I just think it's going to be a tough year for everybody. It already is, but it's just going to be added a bit more pressure.
And it's funny. I'm good friends with a speed skating coach. She trains out of Winsport, and she was telling me that it's like this time right now to try and train because you can't get close while you're trying to train, I guess. So what have you heard, or what do you know about the training specifically that's maybe going to be a little bit different for the athletes?
Well, if you take the speed skaters, so not only is there COVID, and then there was an issue with the Olympic Oval. So when they could have made ice, there was an issue with the chillers, and that's been a whole infrastructure issue, and still one of the best facilities in the world, but it's aging, and there were problems. So there was no ice. So the speed skaters adapted. They actually the long trackers then went to Winsport, and they were doing short track. And then they went to Fort St. John, who has an oval, and they were skating there. And then I'm sure people saw the viral images of the skaters on Gap Lake, which I will say, I took one for the team because I went out there a few weeks ago. I found the only hole, and I fell in it, and I broke my kneecap. So I keep saying to the speed skaters, well, at least I found the hole so you guys can train. And I'm retired. I'm old and retired. So I've never injured myself. That's what I did, but that's okay. But they've been adapting, and that's what's pretty amazing. But for sure it's difficult because speed skating, like every sport, there's such a technical component to it. So as a coach, if you can't go and physically sort of, put the athlete's arm or leg or foot or knee in the right place, you're describing everything. But again, sometimes what those things do for athletes is you get back to the basics. You get back to the core of why you're doing it, and you get back to the basics of, it's a lot of feel. And so, I'm excited for them for sort of what they've been able to be creative about, but I'm also anxious for all the athletes because I can't imagine going through this knowing that the Olympics are 15 months away.
And I mean, we think that's a long amount of time, but here we are 9 months into this pandemic, and we're still kind of like going day by day, week by week. So I guess what's your biggest message that you're hoping to get out over the next, let's say, 18 to 19 months?
Well, there's kind of two messages. The first one to that level of high performance sport is keep focused. You have the long-term goal. So the goal for them is the games, but then you need to break it down step by step. So we do have a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know at this time, everybody's exhausted and drained, but there is a vaccine, and we are going to come out of this. But the other message is more sort of widely based, and that brings in the high performance side and also the community side, and where I am day to day with Sport Calgary is that sport is important because it has been taken away from us. It's been taken away from, my old lady ringette, my old lady hockey, my kids' sports, pick up basketball down the street. All of that has been taken away. And so sport will be key to our healing. It will be healing physically because we will need to be active. It will be healing mentally because we're all, we are struggling in general as a society, but also socially. That's been taken away from us. And so, we need to continue to push the message of sport and how it has to continue to be at the top of our conversations. It doesn't mean high performance sport. It doesn't even mean organized sport, but sport and activity. And so, I think there are two messages, and that message is for everybody because we forget about the basics. And this pandemic has brought us back to the basics.
Man, and that's incredible to hear. And you know what, to tell you the truth, I'm really excited for the 2022 games because it's going to be the first Winter Olympics that we actually have a large group of people congregating at an Olympics Winter Games. So I guess, how does that feel that like this is going to be a monumental worldwide event coming up in 2022?
The games are, I'm passionate about the games, and there are various people who say, oh, there's so much corruption, etc. When you go to a games, they're about the world coming together. And to me, an opening ceremony reminds me each time of what the games are about. It's about the original games. It's about a flame that was lit by the sun, and just the process of that it actually is lit by the sun and then comes all the way to the country where the games are being hosted. And it brings people together. And when I look at the women that I raced against, they were some of my best friends. And we truly wished that each person was going to have their best race so that whoever won, we didn't win because somebody else failed. We won because they pushed us. And so I've seen that and I've lived it. And to me, it's the pure power of sport. And, people talk about that corruption side. They talk about the cheating and the drug side. Yeah, that exists. But the thing is the positive message needs to come out of that you can do all of that without the corruption. You can do all of that without the cheating. And so I will continue to support sport. I will continue to support sport at every single level. And I will continue to support the Olympic Games because I've seen the faces of young kids watching their heroes compete and getting dreams of their own. And to me, as a mom of 2 teenage kids, there's nothing that I love more than watching kids have a dream, whether they're going to work towards that, whether it happens or not, that's part of life. And so, I'm excited about it. I believe that Tokyo will go ahead. I think it will be different, but it'll be the first, Beijing will be the first city to host a summer and a winter. And, regardless of what anybody thinks, I think that's pretty exciting.
You mentioned just a second ago about your 2 teenage kids. Are they involved in sports? And if so, what are they playing and how are they continuing through this right now?
Yeah, my daughter is 16 and she does various sports, but her main sport would be ringette. And my son is 13 and his main sport would be hockey. So they were going and they were, they had games and I just love watching them and being a part of it. So that's on hold. Which has been tough for them, tough socially and physically. I try to do an outdoor rink. So, I go out as many times as I can with my hose and, doing that on my own. And so my son, regardless of the weather, once the ice is going, he's out there shooting pucks. It's just what he loves. So my kids are active. They love sport. They've tried speed skating. My daughter is now officially faster than me on hockey skates, and I'm really not happy about it. They're very athletic, and what's great about this age is I loved when they were little, and I miss it in a way, but we go skiing and they leave me behind. So we're doing activities and we're all equal, and it's super fun.
That's amazing. That's good to hear. One of the things I wanted to ask, going back to the Olympics, is just a little bit like we notice that year after year, you continue to see those world records getting beaten. And I mean, it's just the performance continues to go through the roof. I guess, how has it changed from back when you were competing? And, how does it compare to now?
Yeah, sport, every sport evolves, and that's the nature of sport is, equipment, training, all the different things. And for us, the big change was from outdoor ice to indoor ice, which there are still some events that are outdoor. And then, I guess first it was natural ice to artificial ice to indoor, then the clap skate emerged in 98. But it continues to be that training side and, even the recovery side. How countries, the expertise that they have. And we as a country, we had some of the best experts and we continue to. So definitely speed skating has evolved. I had the world record for, I think, 10 years, but I was just telling my daughter the other day that I still currently hold the Canadian record. So in 2021, it will be 20 years that I hold the record, which is exciting and kind of fun. But also I'm disappointed because it should be broken. And so, there are a few Canadians who have come close to it, but I'm also super proud because it was a high standard and it was a fast time. And so it continues to stand. And, I think for my kids now, they kind of understand that and say, well, that's cool. But, that's the nature of sport. They evolve and they get better and they get more technical. And it's the whole thing. It's not just how an athlete trains, but it's, the training and the experts around them and the ice conditions and the equipment, all of that stuff.
I mean, it's so I have a hockey background. I was a hockey referee for almost 20 years. I was close to the NHL, didn't quite make it because I wanted to start a family. Anyways, but you notice, like, if we were to just think about the skates themselves from when they started and what I was wearing at the beginning to where they evolved 20 years, like, it's just the equipment itself. I mean, the ice, the way that they create it. I mean, it's just, I completely agree that, these records are meant to be broken. I'm curious. We've got some new events coming up in 2022. Are you super familiar with them? And what are your thoughts on the new additions to the 2022 games?
A question I had actually when I was named chef, and I can't answer this yet, is whether Canada will have participation in all of the new events. So, things like monobob, so single bobsleigh for females, mixed relay for short track. But I think the exciting thing is that they will be the most gender balanced games ever. And that is really neat. I think 2012, I'm thinking back to when I was media and to some of the stats that I had in London, is that I think London was the first time that every country had a female representative. And when you think about the countries that are in the summer games, that's pretty incredible. But these games in 2022 will be the most gender balanced, which is a huge accomplishment. So, I think we need to start looking at different things like the check marks that we're putting beside what we're accomplishing in sport. That's huge. And especially, if we even look in Canada where there's so many great opportunities, but still girls drop out of sport. And the pressures that girls are under, I don't know if it's fair to say more than boys, but they take that on. And it's just the way it is. So I'm pretty excited when we look at that, and what a representative that young girls and boys will have, especially at those games in Beijing.
I want to pause there for a second because I've got two young girls. They're 4, and then the other one's 9 months. So she was actually born at the beginning of the pandemic. So that's made life interesting. But I mean, you look at women who are pushing to get women involved in sports as well, yourself getting that message out there, Cassie Campbell. I mean, there's so many strong people that are advocating to get that, and we're just seeing that evolution as we move further into these Olympic Winter Games.
For sure. And it's there's some great role models out there, just as you mentioned. We aren't there yet. We are not there when we look at representation, whether it's on sport boards. You look at the corporate world. We are not there in the corporate world. We are not there on coaching. Oh my goodness. I think for female coaching, it's less than 15%. It's around that number. So it's a tough place because, again, if people want to start a family, the pressure's on female, but the stigma is still there that, for a woman to succeed, she needs to be, headstrong and stubborn. And yeah, so why is that never said about a male? So I battle with that. I'm not going to say that stubborn, headstrong women are easy. It's probably why I'm on my own with my kids. But, to me, it's something that when my daughter sees that I can work, that I can volunteer, that I can be active, I'm proud of that. I really, if people have an issue with it, to me, then they're envious. And for my son, I hope he sees that. And one day, if he, chooses a partner, that partner will be, a headstrong, driven female that, he can say, yeah, you can be independent. So it's something that we are getting there, but my goodness, we're slow.
Yeah, and it's definitely an evolution. So again, I acknowledge you for that, and thank you. Please continue your hard work to drive that and advocate for that, because we need people like you to push for that. I want to switch gears here, talk about your role right now with Sport Calgary. Like, talk about how 2020 has been and what you're looking forward to in 2021.
So in 2020, when the pandemic first hit, we we had a member survey. So again, we don't run events. We have All Sport One Day and All Sport One City, which are free. Come try it. We're a connector. We're the voice of sport. We're advocates for sport. So we really take the community and take the sports and take the facilities and say, let's show you what could fit, regardless of age, regardless of where you live. Let's promote what is accessible and what's around in our community, because we have so many sports that people have never heard of, but that people will be drawn to. And so that's exciting. And that's what I love about what we do at Sport Calgary. But again, when sports shut down, everybody was panicking. So what we did is we had this survey on how they felt the COVID and the pandemic at the start was affecting them and what they were concerned about. So we took that survey, took it to the media, took it to council so that we could give them some information. What was really exciting was it was picked up nationally. And this survey went national to 1,300 communities across the country. And then from that survey then could be sent to the provincial or territorial ministers or the federal ministers so that we could give them an idea of how local sport, which is different than provincial and national sport organizations, how local sport was being affected. So we continued to be real advocates with that, continued to try to, keep our members informed as return to sport was happening, how to get the guidelines, how that was going to look. And again, now that we're in shutdown, what's going to change? So for me, 2021, we want to check in with the members early in the new year to say, okay, how are you dealing? Like, are you still surviving? Because most are run on volunteers, and we know that funds are short, people's time is, people are at wit's end. But I also think that 2021 again is going to be that celebration of sport side, because we're going to come out of this and we're going to need sport. So we need to advocate, continue to advocate to our leaders that sport is going to help us. It's going to help us on the health side in every single way. So I'm excited about it. It's a challenge. We're a nonprofit that's funded primarily by the city. And so, we appreciate that relationship, but we need to continue to fight for sport.
I had Scott Wildeman on the podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, with the Fitness Industry Council of Canada. And he basically said, we need to be part of the solution, right? Sports fitness needs to be part of the solution as we start to reemerge and as we start to open. I guess, what's your thoughts on that?
100%. And sport and fitness and activity needs to be part of our healing and our reopening. I mean, I look at my situation right now where I'm trying to recover a broken patella. And so right now I'm to do exercises, I'm to start on a bike. And so, gym's shutting down. I have an old bike that I used to travel with that's on a trainer. So I'm going to be using that. But, I have that in my house already, where people now, especially with cold weather and with snow, aren't necessarily able to get outside and to be active. And we know that just being active, just walking even, is so good for us mentally. So we need to have that part of the solution. So whether it's sport and kids learning how to deal with each other and how to deal with conflict and how to deal with leadership, whether it's adults dealing with that social side. And again, it's, I have a group of ringette moms, and we have a group text. We sometimes have these Zoom calls, and we might have a few glasses of wine on those. But I'm missing that, because even when we could go outside, we had 10 people at a fire pit, and so that was that's my social side. And so it's tough, and especially around holiday season and days I don't have my kids, that's very tough. And I'm one of tons of people in the same situation, and so we need to make sure that we as a community of sport, fitness, activity. And again, I don't want to blanket organized sport. When people say we're not sport people, do you go outside and walk? Then you're a sport person. So again, I use the broad term of sport.
I love that, because oftentimes it gets complicated and people like to convolute it, where it's like, I'm not active, but well, are you walking around your block every single day? So yeah, I love that you emphasize that. No, sorry, go ahead.
Gardening can be just so great too. And you look at something like that. So I think that's where we need to get our idea of what sport is and broaden it. And that's what we need to continue to understand, that this is just going to continue to be better for us.
So you mentioned an injury there. I assume you got that on the ice, which was what you mentioned earlier. But I guess, how are you personally staying active, fit? You mentioned the bike. I guess what's your protocol for the next healing process, however long that's going to take?
Well, I'm pretty stubborn, like I've mentioned. So, when it first happened, I didn't believe. I've truly never really injured myself. So when I fell, I thought, okay, it's really sore, really swollen. It's a disaster. But when I actually found out a couple days later that it was broken, um, it was tough. Because I'm thinking, you know, everything I want to do is over. So a bone heals well. I need to get an MRI. So I said, any way I can get an MRI. And so I got one. Luckily, things were just strained and not torn. So I am already just, not quite 3 weeks post injury and able to not wear a brace and able to start on these exercises. So the orthopedic surgeon told me, I said, I want to cross country ski on my 50th. So that would be sort of the 4 weeks. And he said, you'll be able to. So downhill, I don't know, because I wanted to take my kids skiing and we love doing that. And if I go skating, I'm going to be that person who is still wearing my big, huge ringette hockey knee pads, shin pads, even out just doing a little skate. And my daughter said, no, you won't. I said, oh, yes, I will. So put me in bubble wrap. I've never needed it before. So I'm a little bit frustrated because I can't go run with my dogs. I can't do the activity, and then I get into my little pity party, and I'm going to admit that, right? So then, I have my wine, and then I see chocolate and I just eat the whole thing. And so then, I know that vicious circle, and it's different because yes, I am active, but I get it. And it's tough because, you do feel sorry for yourself. And so I'm missing that activity side, but I also understand that, I'm going to recover and our community is going to recover. So I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It changes, like one hour, sometimes I'll be good. And then the next hour I'm, upset and mad, but that's normal. And so that's what, everybody's going through that, but I just want to normalize it for that. We all go through it.
Well, I want to acknowledge you for just a minute there. I mean, having that hope, that's what's going to get us through, and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you for sharing that message. And I hope that, you're able to share that with the people around you too, to make sure that they know that, yes, we're going to get out of this and we're going to come out stronger too.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really important is, we just need to support each other. Let's stop judging each other and let's stop judging ourselves. Let's stop judging each other and let's support each other.
100%. One thing I did want to touch on, one of the values of Sport Calgary is respect in sport. And I mentioned earlier that I was a hockey referee for 20 years or 17 years. But I mean, I'm talking, I got called every name in the book. You kind of let it bounce off you. But I guess, tell me why that is so important in sport. And I guess, why is that kind of a value for Sport Calgary?
Yeah, I mean, the organization, the Respect Group, created by Sheldon Kennedy, just an incredible organization. And, I love that so many sport organizations have made the Respect program mandatory. As a parent, as a coach, as a volunteer, I have all the respect in the workplace, respect in sport as a coach, respect in sport as a parent. And it's so important because the thing is that let's go back to what sport gives us. And it gives us those lessons that we can learn. I've never had parents who were vocal at a sporting event. My parents were very quiet in the stands. My mom said before my first Olympics, you don't have to go if you don't want to, because she understood that sport was part of, what I love, but it doesn't define us. And so when you see parents that are yelling at referees, now I'd say now at my age, I go talk to that parent because it drives me crazy, because my son could one day be that referee out on the ice. And, I've been to the highest level of sport, and I will tell you that medals and records and awards, they don't define anybody, because you don't take those. They don't change the person. So to me, when there's a situation like that, it's about ego and it's not about sport. And that's what I really get frustrated about. I get frustrated even as a coach when another coach is yelling something. It's like, why? Like, you know what? The kids aren't going to learn that way. So, no, it's one of the organizations that I truly believe in. And in Sport Calgary, we're all about that. We wrote a declaration, and that was taken after the Red Deer 2019 Canada Games declaration. And it's all about being inclusive, and it's all about being accepting, and it's all about what sport is about, even at the Olympic Games, Paralympic Games, World Championships, community level. You should be enjoying it. That's what it's about.
And looking ahead to 2021, do you foresee live sports coming back when, one example, the WHL, it's supposed to start January 8th. We don't know about the NHL season, but where do you see live sports coming back?
I will say yes, live sports will be coming back, I think, at every level. When? Can you lend me your crystal ball? I don't know. I think everybody has to be disciplined. Everybody has to have common sense, and everybody has to, just abide by these guidelines, and then it will come back faster. And so that's what we're hoping for. It's, I think now that winters has truly hit, we need to look at what options there are. And we live in Canada, so you bundle up and you get outside. And so there are opportunities to be active to a point, and look for creativity and ways that people can do things. And I think that's what this pandemic has showed us.
So talk about the big day, December 23rd. You mentioned you want to go cross country skiing. What else is on the plan for the big birthday?
Originally, I always have a Christmas party. So originally I was going to have a Christmas party probably on that day. So that's obviously not happening. So whether we go cross country skiing, whether we just go tobogganing, whether I can toboggan, but, going outside with my kids, my 2 dogs, that's my goal. We'll probably do a meat fondue. So my son, those who follow me on social media, they always see the incredible things my son wants to be. Well, I don't know if he wants to be a chef, but he already is a chef. He just finds these recipes. And so we'll probably do like a meat fondue and hang out, and that's it. And then, I actually don't have them on Christmas Day. So 24th for us will be Christmas morning. And so you know what, the day is a day. I'm just happy that I have my kids and we can go do something, and whatever that is, it'll be great.
Perfect. Well, that sounds great. I do want to be respectful of your time, but I do have a couple final questions here. One of them is, I want to know about, we talked about it earlier about mentorship and being some of the people that have been a mentor to you, but I want to know, in your life, in your sports life, your personal life, your professional life, who has been some of the biggest people mentoring you throughout that entire process?
It's been interesting because I would say now I'm going to go professional life first. I'm really learning because I've been now CEO of Sport Calgary for just over a year. And so I've really been learning a lot. My chair is Mary Moran, who's CEO of Calgary Economic Development. Pretty incredible person to have as a mentor and see how she leads. And, she's been giving me some great advice. On a sports side, I always look to just how people acted. So, Terry Fox was always my hero because he did things for other people. And I've often felt selfish, which is how you kind of have to be as a high performance athlete. But there are people who I met along the way who would do certain things that, to me, that's my mentor for how I want to act. So I didn't necessarily have one person. I had people who came into my life who I would say it was their actions or their attitudes that became the mentor for me, because I was in control, or tried to be in control, of my physical training. I had this team of experts around me who showed me what to do. But what I could really sort of go up and down on is how I reacted in certain situations. If I got frustrated, and I'm very internal, and I show a lot of emotion to people who are very close to me. but otherwise I'm a really good actor. And people don't often see sort of the real me, or that's how it used to be. So when I would see an indication of somebody and how they would deal with a stressful or a bad or a good situation, to me, that was my mentor, because that's how I wanted to sort of be just like them. So that's sort of how I took it. And I think that's why we can never ignore those small moments in our life, because they can have a huge impact, or how we act, because somebody could always be watching us.
How much of your kids pushed you to be a better professional, better athlete, better CEO? Tell me about that.
You know, my kids have taught me to be real. That's what they've taught me to be. You know, there are a lot of athletes who compete after having kids, and I can't imagine, because, you know, everything I do is about them. And so I just don't know if I have the capacity emotionally to be able to train and be there for them. What they've taught me, especially in the last few years, is to not be fake, not to be artificial. And I've never been artificial, but again, I've worn a mask. And so, you know, they know they're okay, and they understand if I break down, or, you know, if I'm struggling with something. So I think that's what kids, especially that teenage age, can do. And, you know, I see my son who's stepped up at certain things that, you know, even the cooking, he loves it. And he loves, you know, sort of taking care of me. And my daughter is just so compassionate that, you know, for a 16-year-old girl, it's pretty impressive. So, you know, that's what my kids have taught me. And so they've made me want to be stronger and try things, but also be vulnerable. And often for people, especially adults, that's one of the toughest things.
And one final question here while I still have you.
Okay.
You spent some time in the media. So I work in the media. Like, tell me what your experience was like. Is it something that you're glad you did? Tell me about the media experience.
Yeah, and it's a huge varied experience. I mean, I did everything from doing features at summer games, you know, to doing play-by-play for speed skating at games, to being a host of Olympic Morning, an 8-hour show a day in London, co-hosting with Dave Randorf. There's some great stuff. And as you know, and anybody in the media know, there's a lot of crap. You have producers screaming their heads off. You go into the control room and it's mayhem, but somehow what comes out on screen is absolutely brilliant. But you know what I've learned, and is you see the real people, and you know, the cameraman and who, you know, would haul stuff around countries and all of their equipment, and you know, just, you know, people are real people, and they work their butts off, and I really respect that. And I've never been, anybody in the media will know what a poodle is, and I've always been really proud that everybody said, you're never a poodle. You've never been a poodle. And so I'm very proud of that. I don't miss it. Some of my best friends are from the media, but you know, I sort of did what I wanted to do and accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And I put a check beside that, and hence my then role and sort of happiness with the choice of leaving media and going to the mission team with the Olympics.
Well, Catriona, thank you so much for your time. I want to acknowledge you for a minute before we go. The line that really stuck with me, I wrote it down here. You didn't win because someone else failed. You won because someone else pushed me. And that line is going to stick with me, because I think that is so true. We can build each other up as athletes. We can understand that, yes, it is a competition, but at the same time, you can build that camaraderie. You can really, really help other people grow at the same time. So I acknowledge you for that. I also acknowledge you for being a human being and saying, you know what, sometimes I have wine and chocolate, and that's okay. This is a stressful time. I get together with the Ringette group, the Ringette family. So I acknowledge you for that. And I also acknowledge you for having that hopeful mindset and that ability to share that with other people. And the fact that you're, you know, raising 2 teens through this, I acknowledge you for all of that. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your words.
Social media. Can people follow you on social media? Where can people get more information about what you're up to?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is always a weird spelling. So it's Catriona. No, well, 5 people in the world say it. My dad, my 2 sisters, and my son. My daughter sometimes. So the real pronunciation is Catriona, but it's with a C. It's Catriona LD. That's my handle on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Hang on the line for a sec. I'm just going to stop the recording, okay?
Okay, thanks.